So today we're going to continue our understanding of social influences on behavior. This time we're looking at this idea of prosocial behavior. Okay, so basically we need to be able to define what is prosocial behavior. So when we look at prosocial behavior, it's basically behavior that is which is another word for social, which is relating to our society. So prosocial behavior is behavior that you do that is kind of like for society. Okay, if you break down the word for society, meaning that it's something that you do that has a benefit for society or people in society. Okay, so for example, you might volunteer at a homeless shelter. Okay, you might hold the door open for somebody. Okay, if you're sitting on a bus and you see an old lady or a pregnant woman or someone who's elderly get on the bus, you might give up your seat for them. So these are all examples of prosocial behavior that basically are done with the pure intention of helping someone. Okay, so helping behavior and prosocial behavior kind of go hand in hand, because when you're engaging in some kind of helping behavior, you are basically engaging in prosocial behavior. Okay, so these are just some examples. You don't need to know all of them, but just know maybe at least two. And again, these are really like kind of general knowledge, common sense. Any prosocial behavior is basically any behavior that helps somebody. Okay, it doesn't have to be a whole community or a whole society. Even just helping one person can make a difference and can be classified as a prosocial behavior then. So that's our definition of what prosocial behavior is. Now we have to understand more specifically a type of prosocial behavior known as helping behavior. Okay, so that's the main difference between the two. If prosocial behavior is our like umbrella term or like our big heading, helping behavior is literally one type of prosocial behavior. It comes under the heading of prosocial behavior then. So what is helping behavior? Helping behavior is, again, very similar to the definition of prosocial behavior. It's when you're assisting someone in order to improve their lives or to improve their well-being. Okay, and that could be any of the well-beings, like physical well-being, could be mental, could be emotional, could be social. Okay, it could be any of those different types of well-being or health that we talk about. As we said, helping others is an example of a prosocial behavior. Okay, but for the rest of this spread today, we have to look at this idea that even if we, for example, even if we see someone who's in need of help, who is obviously in need of help, who could require some assistance, we may not help that person. In some cases, we will not help that person. In some cases, we cannot help that person. Okay, so those are the three things that can influence our helping behavior. Okay, sometimes we choose not to help people, but sometimes people don't help others because they're not able to. Okay, physically they cannot. Some people choose not to help. Okay, so that's basically the three kind of like conditions that influence whether we help others realistically in society. Okay, when we're out and about. We're going to go through those factors and a number of other factors in the rest of this spread. And we call those the influences or the factors that influence helping behavior then. We're also going to look at a real life incident of the death of a lady called Catherine Genovese. Her nickname was Kitty, who basically was stabbed outside her apartment. And basically her story is one of what happens when people don't help, even when they see somebody who's suffering, who's struggling, who's literally on the brink of dying. What happens when people don't help? Okay, and this was a very old old incident, happened in 1964, but I'll go into this in a bit more depth, and we'll watch a video as well about it. Okay, so that's helping behavior. So looking at Catherine Genovese or Kitty Genovese's story, her story, again, like I said before, is the story of what happens when people don't help. Okay, so the basic idea, and you can see the newspaper clipping here, on Friday, March 13, 1964, she was only 28 years old. I think she was working as a waitress or something at a cafe. She was returning home from work after a late shift. And as she approached her apartment entrance in New York City, so she lived in Queens, which is in New York, she was attacked and stabbed by a man later identified as Winston Moseley. So this is kind of him in that picture there. Okay. Despite Genovese's repeated calls for help, none of the dozen or so people in the nearby apartment building who heard her cries called police to report the incidents. So the attack first began at 3:20, but it was not until 3:50 that someone first contacted the police. And you know, when you're being attacked by someone in the middle of the night, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, there's a lot of time for you to harm that person significantly, okay? So this is the incident, okay? And you can see the article 37, who saw murder didn't call the police. So there was a lot of media backlash about this incident as well. A lot of the media reported it, and, you know, basically a lot of psychologists jumped onto it as well. And this term, the bystander effect, or you might have heard people telling other people, you know, when you see something wrong happening in society, don't be a bystander. This word bystander was actually coined, or actually came into existence, after Kitty Genovese's incident, okay? The bystander effect became a thing after her incident, because her incident was like one that caused worldwide shock, that are we that bad as human beings that we see someone that's in harm, we look outside our windows and we don't really, helping is not our first instinct, kind of thing, okay? So that's the basic idea. And so we're going to come back to this term bystander effect, and we're going to look at the factors that influence why certain people become bystanders, okay? Because sometimes people have genuine reasons as well for why they don't help straight away. So we're going to look at those factors. Okay, so there are a lot of different factors we are going to look at in spread 8C. So I've just put together this little diagram thingamajig so that we can kind of have a better understanding. And when you guys are summarizing or kind of revising these for your SAC, you kind of know which one comes under which heading. So just to give you a quick overview, these are the factors that influence whether or not someone will help another person, okay? Whether or not helping behavior will occur. So you've got your situational factors. Situational factors are related to, for example, people around you, the bystander effect, which we'll go into in a little bit more depth, physical proximity, so how far or how close someone in need of help is to you, the risk, so cost benefit analysis. So basically, is it worth the risk for me to help someone? The timing, sensory, environmental cues also plays a role there. Personal factors refer to your individual differences that cause some people to help rather than other people. So your level of empathy towards others, the mood that you're in. We know that not everyone is in the same mood at the same time. That can influence whether you help someone. Your physical ability. Some people are tall, some people are short, some people are strong, some people are weak, okay? So that physical ability or that physical capacity you have can also influence your ability to help. Attributions as well, which we've looked at in chapter 7, plays a role as well there. And the social factors or the social norms that kind of guide whether someone will help another person is social responsibility, social justice, and reciprocity, which means that you do for others what they do for you, kind of thing. Anyway, we're going to go through all of these in a bit more depth now. Okay, so the first one we're looking at is situational factors. So we're basically looking at this idea of we're taking responsibility for helping, and we're looking at this factor of the presence of others. Generally, the idea is that when you are surrounded by other people, you are less likely to help. Okay, sometimes you might notice the situation, you know for sure that this person is in need of help, they're screaming help, they look like they're in pain, they're suffering, but you still don't take that responsibility to intervene or to help them. Okay, intervene means to kind of, you know, basically get into the middle of something and actually try to do something to help. Now, the bystander effect is this idea, and this is what Kitty Genovese's death was attributed to, the idea that so many people were in that apartment building and every single other person was thinking in their brain, I don't need to help because someone else will. Okay, and you can see that's what's happening in this image here. One guy kind of looks like he's trying to do something to help, but the others are kind of just sitting there having a drink or, you know, just watching from a distance. When there are more people around you, your responsibility kind of becomes like a pass the parcel. So you take your responsibility and you pass it on to the next person. And that's what we call as the diffusion of responsibility. Okay, diffusion of responsibility is this idea that you kind of play pass the parcel with responsibility. So rather than you choosing to take the onus and to help that person who is in need, you actually pass that responsibility to someone else. Okay, so that's the basic idea. The bystander effect is even more common in today's world because of this kind of desire that people have, that when they see some kind of tragedy going down, they have this instinct to take their phone out and to record it. Okay. And so as a result of you recording that incident, you are actually being a bystander as well. It's not just a matter of standing there and not doing anything, but even by just recording on your phone or by not doing something to help the situation, you are still being a bystander. Okay. And I think with the usage of phones in today's world, the bystander effect becomes even more prominent than it was before. Okay. So that's the influence of the presence of others. So the more people there are around you, the less likely you are to help. Okay. And that's because of the bystander effect. Now, the bystander effect is influenced by two kind of factors or two concepts. The first one is called the diffusion of responsibility, and the second one is called audience inhibition. And they're kind of similar, but we'll just go through them. So the diffusion of responsibility, as I just mentioned before, guys, it's about passing the parcel. So if responsibility or your individual kind of duty to help someone can be seen as a parcel, okay, you kind of play past the parcel with that responsibility. So you don't take responsibility yourself and you think what these people are thinking, the others will help. Okay. Now, if you look at the first picture here, it says chance of helping behavior. Okay. If you're with that person and they need help and it's in a one-on-one situation, you're 85% more likely to help as compared to if you were in a group. Okay. And if there are multiple people there with you. In that case, you're only 31% likely to help. Okay. Obviously, when you're the only person there, if these two people are out of the picture, for example, and this man, this businessman in the suit sees this person drowning, he is more likely to help that person because no one else is around for him to pass that parcel of responsibility. Okay. So that's what we say, the diffusion of responsibility. Diffusion means when something passes on or passes through. So diffusion of responsibility means you're passing that responsibility to someone else, okay? And the diffusion of responsibility is the main reason why Kitty Genovese was murdered in front of her apartment. So you can see in this little comic strip here, everyone's kind of on their phones hashtagging, do something, united for her and all this stuff, but she's like there like dying. So no one's really doing anything of substance there to actually help her, okay? They each pass the parcel to the next person thinking the next person will call the police, the next person will alert the authorities, blah, 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 but it never really happened, okay? So that's the diffusion of responsibility there. Audience inhibition is this idea, it's a little bit different from diffusion of responsibility. Audience inhibition is this idea that you are not likely to help another person because you don't want to seem like a fool. You don't want to seem stupid. You don't want to seem silly in front of other people. Okay, so there's an audience and that audience is other people. And inhibition is another word for stop or prevent. So basically what audience inhibition means is that your helping behavior is stopped or prevented or inhibited, in other words, due to the fact that there's an audience and you're more preoccupied with what the audience will think of you and whether you'll feel foolish in front of the audience as compared to actually helping that person. Okay, there was an experiment conducted on this called the smoke-filled room experiment. We don't study it in depth, but it will be covered in the video that we'll watch. The smoke-filled room experiment is this idea. It's a very simple experiment, actually. You just put a person in a room and there are other Confederates in the room with them. So people who are working with the experiment or who are in on the experiment. So this is the actual subject or the outside participant who's come in, not knowing that this is a set up experiment, okay? And so you get them to start doing surveys because they're all part of a focus group. And about like probably 40 seconds into the survey, this lady will see smoke coming out of one of the doors, okay? And obviously that's indicative that maybe a fire or something is going on. So basically they count how long it takes her for, or how many seconds or how many minutes it takes her to actually discuss this with the people next to her, to be like, oh my God, there's a fire, guys, what should we do? Okay. And what they realize is that it takes a very long time for people in these kinds of situations to actually talk about or to say, you know, there's a fire coming from that room. Come on, we got to go help the people in there, because they feel like they don't want to be foolish in front of others. Even if the smoke is right in front of their eyes and they can see it, they basically are inhibited. They're stopped or prevented from the helping behavior when there are others around them. Now, in a second variation of that experiment, when these two people were not in the room, and when this lady was there all by herself, it only just took her like a few seconds to go ask for help, okay? Because she knew that that responsibility was on her. So you can see how audience inhibition and diffusion of responsibility are kind of connected there, or kind of linked, okay? And both of these are basically connected to the bystander effect. Okay, so that's the idea there. In this example, or this picture here with the two boys, look, you might be on that bus and you might be sitting at the back and you might see one of the boys kind of, looking like he's putting his arm around or his hand around that boy's neck. From a distance, that might look like it's dangerous, but then at the same time, you might be like, do I really want to go confront this kid? What if they're just friends and they're just play fighting? What if they're just putting on an act to amuse everyone in the bus? So that's why you might not actually go and help this kid, even though from the outside it looks like he's being harmed, because you don't want to appear foolish in front of others. If you go confront them and the guy's like, what are you talking about? Just sit down, like we're just play fighting. What's your problem? This kid is going to seem foolish in front of the rest of the bus. So he's less likely to help. That's what audience inhibition is. Okay. You're not helping another person because you don't want to appear foolish or silly or stupid in front of that audience or in front of the others around you. Okay, so that's audience inhibition. So just remember, diffusion of responsibility and audience inhibition are the two things that influence the bystander effect. Okay, so those are all related concepts there. So this is a summary of the situational factors that influence your helping behavior. You don't need to know them in a lot of depth. I've just put the table from your book. It's just kind of common sense as well. Okay, so these are factors relating to the situation that influence whether you will help someone. So physical proximity. The closer you are to a person physically, like physical distance wise, the more likely you will be to help them. So if this person is sitting on the bench and you're just right in front of them and they're saying, please help me, you're very close. The distance there is not very far away. Okay, so you're very closely or physically distanced very closely or in a very proximate way to that person. So as a result of that, you will have a willingness to help. Okay, because that person is right in front of you. Okay, if you're confronted directly by a victim, you're also more likely to help because that person has come to you. They're in your kind of personal space or they're in your kind of like radius. Okay, so you would feel guilty not to help. Okay, compared to if this person was sitting on a train and you were on the other side of the carriage, you would be less likely to help them. Okay, that's the idea. Physical proximity is about distance. Are they far away from you or are they close by? If they're close by, you are more likely to help. Risk. Obviously, there are people in the world who are selfless. Sometimes we see them in movies, sometimes we see them in real life, who will risk their lives to help others, okay? And we call those people altruistic people. They're people who are so selfless that they will risk their own well-being to help others or to save others or rescue others, okay? However, the majority of the population will not risk their lives to save another person, okay? This is just the statistics, okay? So basically, the risk of a situation and the harm that it could do to you as the helper can also influence your ability to help someone, okay? And usually what we do before we decide whether or not we want to help someone is we run a cost-benefit analysis, okay, which sounds like a very technical and selfish thing to do when someone needs help, but it's actually something that people do, okay? So that basically means that I weigh up the benefits and the costs. So if someone's drowning, okay, and it's very clear that they're drowning and I've confirmed that they're in need of help, I will look at the costs and the benefits. If I can't swim, I'm not going to jump into the water to save them because that could lead to both of us drowning, okay? So then I might say, I can't help this person because the costs of helping this person outweigh or are more than the benefits of helping this person, okay? And so I might then call someone else to come and help. For example, I might call a lifeguard, okay? Or I might actually call someone who can swim or who is a good swimmer, okay? That's the basic idea, okay? The basic idea being here, if the risk of helping is too high, and could potentially be dangerous to you as the helper, you will be less likely to help. Okay, that's the basic idea there. Do we need to know the term altruistic? No, you don't need to know the term. I think it's mentioned in your book, but it's not a topic in the study design anymore. So we won't be asking you to describe what altruism is, but yeah, it's just there for, just connected to the concept, that's it. Okay, timing. So a potential helper has to perceive or understand that they have enough time in order to help. Okay, think about it. If you're in school and if you found out that, one of your friends or your cousins or your family friends that are in year 7, has just fallen to the floor and need to get to the first aid room, you're on the opposite side of the school, in the senior campus. So by the time you get there, you're not really going to be able to help them. It'll probably be more ideal for one of their friends or one of the teachers that's on yard duty there to help that student, rather than you going all the way, taking all the time from this side of the school to the other side of the school, where you might not have enough time to help that person in the most effective way. Okay, so it's about time as well. We might want to help someone, but we might not have the time to help them. We might not reach there in time, or we might not even have the time like to help them in terms of, if I'm running for a train for an important job interview and someone's fainted on the platform, I have to kind of look at whether I have enough time to help that person and still make the train, or whether I'll miss the train and thus miss the interview. And again, sometimes we look at timing as a cost, okay? If helping this person will cause me to lose the job interview, I might look at that timing as a cost, which might then not influence me to help the person. And sensory environmental cues. And this is kind of like a bit, one of the more interesting factors, I think, because actually research shows that if a person has a pleasant smell, that will actually increase the likelihood of you helping them, which is actually kind of funny, because it basically means like if you're out and about in society, or you're in the city and someone's in need of help but they stink, you're less likely to help them. Okay, I know that sounds really mean, but that is the basic idea, and that's what the research shows. Okay, similarly, if something, any environmental cue, doesn't just have to be smell, anything that you can perceive with your senses, it could be sight. If someone's collapsed on the floor and they've got a pool of vomit or a pool of blood next to them, you are probably less likely to go ahead and help them. Okay. Again, this depends on the individual as well. Some people are less, find these things less aversive or less disgusting. So it really depends on who you are. But the majority of the population are more likely to help someone when there's no body fluids involved, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so you guys, you need to know all of the situational factors, because with this topic, there is a chance that we can ask you for a specific one. So that's why I say you can't learn just like one or two for this. You have to learn all of them for the SAC. Okay, so that's the basic idea with the situational factors. Then we look at personal factors. The personal factors are really simple. Just looking at empathy, ability, mood, and attributions there. So empathy is basically your ability to get on someone else's level and to understand what they're going through, okay? It's not just looking at someone from above and looking kind of down on them and being like, oh, I feel so sorry for you. Like, that's sympathy, okay? Sympathy and empathy are two very different things. And there's a video on YouTube, I think it's a TED video. I'll probably link it in the school box page. And that's where I've taken this picture from. It's a really good video for you guys to understand what empathy is, okay? Empathy is getting on someone's level and understanding their point of view. And empathy basically builds that connection with others, makes you understand how someone's feeling. Sympathy is more like looking down on someone, not really identifying with them, not understanding their struggle, okay? So empathy is what we want to aim for in life, I guess. Okay, so empathy is basically when you understand what someone is going through, when you see someone and you think in your mind, oh my God, if I was in their situation, I would feel this way, or oh my God, I've been there. You're more likely to help them. Okay, we see this a lot now with what's going on in Afghanistan and all the, the people who've had to flee the country. And, we see the struggle that's going on there and anywhere else in the world. And, we can identify with these people. We haven't gone through what they've gone through maybe in real life, but we understand that if I was a mother and I was fleeing the country and I had to give my baby to someone else for that baby to be best protected, I would want to be helped. And so we're more likely to donate to GoFundMe pages and to promote these to promote these causes on social media, because we understand what those people are going through, okay? Because we have empathy for those people there. So that's basically what empathy is, okay? Sometimes people don't understand what someone's going through, okay? And those people are less likely to help, okay? Or they might help, but it's for a selfish motive, for example, to show off in front of others. Okay, so empathy is very important because it builds connection there. When you feel connected and understand how someone else is feeling, you are more likely to help them, okay? Because you are kind of understanding what wavelength they're operating on, and you're more likely to see their struggle for what it is. So that is empathy. Now, our ability is to do with our physical ability or our capacity, okay, or our skills that we have. So whatever skills that we have, influence our ability to help someone. Okay, for example, if the example I told you guys about before, if someone's drowning at the beach, but you don't know how to swim, you're not really going to be likely to help them. Okay, but you can still help out in other ways. For example, calling out for the lifeguard, shouting, oh, who can swim here? There's someone who needs help. So you can still help in other ways. It doesn't mean you're completely, completely unable to help them. So that's the basic idea. When we talk about, things like ability, it's not just about physical ability. Actually, it's also about mental ability. For example, if someone's fainted on the train platform, the first thing that people will say is like, is there anyone here with first aid? Can anyone here do CPR? Okay, so generally, you can still help if you've got the mental capacity, okay? And that's all to do with your competence, whether it's physical competence or mental competence, you are able to help that person there because of some ability that you have, okay? So that's the basic idea. Mood can also play an influence on helping behavior. Okay, sometimes it helps. A positive mood can help you to help others, but a positive mood from others can also help you to get what you want, as we can see in this meme here. Okay, so mood basically refers to our emotions. Generally, when we're in a positive mood, we're more likely to help others because we feel more generous. We feel more motivated to show friendliness and warmth and cooperate with another person. Okay. The same thing, it goes the other way as well, okay? If you want someone to help you, it's better to catch them when they're in a positive mood compared to when they're in a bad mood, okay? For example, if I am in class and I'm like in a super bad mood and I'm super grumpy and angry and I'm screaming every second, you're not going to ask me, Miss, can you extend the SAC day in that situation, okay? Because you know that I'm not in the mood to probably say yes to that, okay? Whereas if you catch me when I'm a little bit more happy or in a better mood, I'm probably more likely to entertain that idea, okay? So it's a bi-directional relationship or a two-way relationship there. Happy people tend to be helpful people, and helping behavior can also make you happy or bring you feelings of happiness, okay? So that's the relationship between mood and helping behavior there. Okay, in a lot of cultures, like I know in Japanese culture, for example, before you go to like finalize a business deal, people actually bring like a little gift for the person that they're going. So if you're going to see, for example, your manager in Japan and you want to ask them for something, you would bring them like a little gift or a little present or a treat or something. And the kind of key idea behind that is that they're more likely to develop that positive mood and more likely to see you as a polite and respectful member of society, and thus more likely to help you. Okay, so that's the connection between mood and helping behavior. When we look at attributions also play a big role in our helping behavior, particularly for people who are stigmatized in society. So we're talking about people, for example, with mental health issues. We're talking about people with disabilities, talking about people like homeless people, for example. Okay, and remember, if you guys look back to chapter 7, attributions is about putting the why, okay, or attributing a reason why that behavior occurred. And we can make two types of attributions. We can make internal attributions, which are about the person, and we can make external attributions, which are about all those different factors like culture, environment, working conditions, living conditions, family, all that stuff, the outside factors. Okay, now how we choose to make attributions can actually influence our helping behavior. And there's an example here. Okay, so, and this is a lot of what people, this is influenced a lot in terms of how a lot of people in Australia and many Western countries view homeless people. Okay, a lot of the time when you see a homeless person on the street, some people might be more likely to assist them if they make an external attribution. So basically, if they think in their mind, this person is homeless because they might have escaped domestic violence, because they might have lost their job due to the COVID employment cuts, because they might have had conflicts with their friends that caused them to be kicked out of a share home or something that they were renting. Okay, that's an external attribution. That's when you're not blaming the person, but you're actually blaming the situation that that person might have gone through. On the other hand, and this is what a lot of homeless people get stigmatized for unfairly, is that you think that, oh, this person is homeless because they are a drug addict. are drug addicts, or this person is homeless because they spent all their money on alcohol. Okay, that's an internal attribution where you are blaming the person rather than thinking about their situation. Okay, so that's the basic idea. We're more likely to help someone if we blame them less. Okay, victim blaming doesn't cause you to help someone, it just causes you to put someone down. But if we think about the external factors or situations that that person is going through or grappling with in their everyday life, we're more likely to understand that they're struggling, and we're more likely to help them because of that. So external attributions promote helping behavior. Internal attributions, blaming the person, victim blaming, those don't allow for helping behavior to occur. Okay, that's the basic summary there. Okay, and the last thing we're looking at for today before we jump onto our video is basically looking at the 3 types of norms that influence helping behavior. And these norms are really straightforward. They're things that we actually think about when we help others, but we're just giving like fancy names for them now, okay? So the first norm is the social responsibility norm. Okay, the social responsibility norm is basically what the name suggests. It's that we help others who need our help, okay? Or that we help others because we are in a position where we can help them, okay? And it would be completely wrong, completely unethical, and completely immoral to not help that person. For example, if you see a child who's crying in the middle of a supermarket and you're literally just walking past them, it's very hard for you not to ask them, are you okay? Or what do you need? Okay. And as an adult or as someone older than that child, you might, you realize that you've got that responsibility to help that kid. If not you helping them, at least calling like one of the workers in the shop to be like, I think this kid's missing their mum or their dad. Can you please take them to the service desk? Or you might take that kid to the service desk, and then whoever's there will deal with the kid from there. Okay. So that's the social responsibility norm, that we need to help others who are in need. And that one of the expectations of us as citizens of any society is that when there is a vulnerable person, like a child, like a member of the elderly, who's in need, we need to help them. Okay, a lot of the time you also see this with incidents, for example, on public transport or in public, where there are incidents of racism, okay, or sexism. Okay, if someone's screaming at another person on the train because of their hijab, or because of the fact that they wear a turban, or because of the fact that, they are from a specific culture, it is our social responsibility to kind of step in and try to help that person, okay? Or at least maybe if we're sitting a little bit further away, we might give that person our seat and tell them, here, move here. Or, we might try to help that person rather than try to post their incident on social media. If we do post it on social media, we do it to increase awareness of the issue or to get that person into trouble, whoever's perpetrating that issue there. Okay, so that's the basic idea. Social responsibility, we help others because they need our help. It's not about returning the favor. Okay, reciprocity norm, on the other hand, basically indicates that we help others who help us. Okay, that is basically returning the favor. Okay, returning the favor means if, for example, you let me borrow your notes for psychology, I might let you borrow my notes for biology, okay? Or I might let you have a look at my, logbook for maths, okay? So you can know how to make yours, okay? If you buy me a coffee one time when we go to Starbucks, I might get you a Frappuccino the next time we go. So it's kind of like you help someone, but it's not one-sided, okay? It's a two-sided thing. Someone helps you, you help them in return. Okay, and again, this is kind of like a social etiquette as well. Okay, a lot of the time, if someone helps us, we feel like we should help that person or do something for that person or get them something because it's a social etiquette to do so. The social justice norm is a little bit more of an interesting one, and it's this idea that we should only help people that deserve it. Okay, and I feel like I see this a lot nowadays with the whole vaccine discussion, with COVID-19 vaccine, and some of the discussions people are having on social media, which I should be staying away from actually, because it gives me a headache reading those comments. But, basically this idea that we should only help those who deserve it. And a lot of people, it's funny because in the comments of those things, when people are like anti-vaccine, people who are pro-vaccine, who like the vaccine, will comment stuff like, oh, when you get COVID, let's see how you can, let's see when you get COVID, let's see, whether you can get the vaccine or not, or let's see what you're going to do when you actually get COVID. Okay. And that is this idea of social justice norm, that we should only help people who deserve it. If someone's totally anti-vaccine, that I will never take the vaccine, well, what's the point of helping them if they do get COVID? Okay, that's the idea behind the social justice norm. Obviously, as a doctor or as a nurse, you are more likely to help them. Okay, but as a general member of society, you might go with the social justice norm. You might think this guy was anti-vaccine until he got COVID. Now he wants the vaccine. He doesn't deserve it. There are other people who are more deserving. Similarly, another example, the one from your book, is that a criminal who's in need of assistance to dispose of a body, so basically a murderer or a serial killer, should not get any help from others, okay, because they don't deserve that help, okay, because they're doing something that's bad. Okay, so that's the idea. The social justice norm indicates that if someone is arguing for something that the majority of people think is wrong, or if someone is arguing for something or asking for help to do something that's immoral or criminal, we're not likely to help them because they don't deserve it. Okay, that's the idea. Okay, so those are the three social norms on which we operate when we think about helping someone. Okay, so these are all the factors, again, just from your book, taken from your book, just basically summarizing the slides. Look, if you're studying for the SAC and you're doing some last minute revision and you literally cannot be bothered going through all the previous slides, at least go through this one. This is like the basic of the basic summary of how, you know, these factors can influence our helping or are not helping. So reluctance to help is not helping. Increased helping is when you do help. Okay. So what we're going to do now is, before we do this activity, I just want to show you guys, in fact, I'll probably get you guys to work on this activity, you know, in your, in your next session, which is the offline session. And then we'll discuss the answers to this before we start our online session tomorrow, before we start the next spread. So what I want to do in the remaining 9 minutes or so that we have, I think the video is only about 6 minutes. So I want to show you guys the video. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording here, and then we'll watch the video and we'll be done.